I never thought the person I trusted most would be the one to humiliate me in front of everyone I cared about. But there I was, sitting at that table in a cozy restaurant in Manchester, feeling as if every bit of dignity I had was being peeled away in front of people who had watched our relationship grow from the beginning. How do you even process something like that while it is happening? Because one second, I was happier than I had been in a long time. And the next, I was staring at the man across from me and wondering whether I had ever really known him at all. And the worst part is, even now, I still do not fully understand why he did it. The day had started like one of those anniversaries you picture in your head when life finally feels steady. Nothing too flashy, nothing dramatic, just warm, comfortable, familiar. The kind of day that makes you think maybe, just maybe, your life has settled into something good. It had been 2 years since Daniel and I started dating. 2 years since our friends had awkwardly introduced us during lockdown over a video call, both of us half laughing, half panicking, trying to make conversation while pretending it was not painfully strange. I still remember adjusting my laptop camera every few minutes because I was so nervous. I kept hoping he would not notice how unsteady my voice was. But Daniel had this calmness about him from the start. The way he spoke was gentle, measured, reassuring. It felt like nothing could really shake him. I think that was one of the first things I fell for. Over time, that calm became something I relied on. He was patient when I spiraled over the smallest things. He listened when I rambled. He had a way of making me feel safe, like I did not need to edit myself around him. No pretending, no performing, just me. So when our anniversary came around, I was not expecting anything extravagant. The year before, we had promised each other we would keep things simple. Just us, quiet, meaningful. But this year, our friends had other ideas. The same group who had set us up insisted on organizing a lunch for us. They booked a table at this little independent place tucked away on a side street, all warm lighting and mismatched chairs and candles in glass jars. They even paid in advance. It felt like one of those full circle moments, like they were celebrating something they had helped start. And honestly, I loved that. When I walked into the restaurant with Daniel that afternoon, everything felt soft somehow. Golden lighting, the low hum of conversation, plates clinking, the smell of roast chicken, butter, and something sugary in the air. It was the sort of place that made everyone look slightly prettier and every moment feel gentler than it really was. Everyone was already there, laughing, talking, teasing us the second we walked in. "Look who finally made it," one of them said. "The anniversary couple." Someone else called us disgusting in the affectionate way friends do when they think you are too happy. I laughed, sliding into my seat, squeezing Daniel's hand under the table. That little flutter still lived in my chest after 2 years. It still surprised me sometimes. I truly thought, in that moment, that this would become one of those memories we would revisit years later. One of those stories that starts with, "Remember our second anniversary lunch, when everyone embarrassed us?" Lunch carried on exactly the way it should have. Shared starters, too many chips on the table, stories from the early days of our relationship, jokes about that first lockdown video call, me hiding my face while everyone reminded me how awkward I had been, Daniel smiling and joining in. He was normal. That is the part that keeps replaying in my head even now. He was smiling, talking, engaged, relaxed. That same familiar calm. There was nothing, absolutely nothing, that warned me about what was coming. Then, somewhere in the middle of lunch, one of his mates cleared his throat. It was small, subtle, but I noticed the look he gave Daniel. It felt like some silent signal passing between them. Daniel reached under the table. When he lifted his hand again, he was holding a small jewelry box. My heart started pounding instantly. I cannot even explain why. It was not as though I was expecting a proposal or anything huge, but there was something about the way he looked at me then. Something weighted and serious and warm that made the moment feel bigger than it had a right to. He slid the box towards me. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was the most beautiful necklace I had ever seen. A delicate gold chain, simple and elegant, with a small heart-shaped pendant. In the center was a tiny diamond that caught the light in the most understated way. Not showy, just lovely. My breath caught because I recognized it. A few weeks earlier, we had been wandering around the Trafford Centre, drifting in and out of shops, and I'd paused for a second outside a jeweller's. I had looked at that exact necklace through the display glass. I had not even said anything. I had just admired it for a moment, thought it was beautiful and far too expensive, and moved on. And somehow, he had noticed. That realization hit me all at once. Emotion rushed through me so suddenly, I thought my chest might burst with it. Before I could stop myself, I leaned over, wrapped my arms around him, and kissed him. "Thank you," I whispered, probably louder than I realized, because our friends immediately started cheering. I could feel my whole face glowing. That kind of happiness that almost hurts because you are smiling so much. And in that moment I thought, he really does see me. So I sat back down, still smiling, and said, a little shyly, "You're not the only one with a gift." I reached into my bag and pulled out the book. It was not fancy, not even a little bit. The cover was handmade. The edges were slightly uneven. If you looked closely, you could tell it had not been professionally bound or printed. It looked personal, because it was, but to me, it was everything. I had spent months making it. Late nights rewriting sections, tweaking lines, replacing words that did not feel quite right. I had poured everything into it. Our story, our memories, little private jokes no one else would understand, hard moments we had survived, quiet moments that mattered more than they should have, the reasons I had stayed, the reasons I had loved him. I had even written poems. God, I remember how self-conscious I felt doing that. Sitting alone in bed with a notebook, staring at the page, thinking, this is so cringe, he is going to hate this. But I wrote them anyway, because they were honest, because they were mine, because they were about him. I handed the book to him with my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "I made this for you," I said softly. "It's us." The table erupted again. Cheers, teasing. Someone said, "That's actually far more romantic than jewelry." I laughed nervously and tucked my hair behind my ear, watching his face, waiting, hoping. But instead of the soft smile I expected, his expression changed. At first it was subtle, just a tiny furrow in his brow, then confusion, then something else, something I could not name. But it made my stomach drop. He turned the book over in his hands as though he did not quite understand what he was holding. "What is this?" he asked. The way he said it, It was not curious. It was wrong. The air around the table shifted immediately. He did not open it. Not a single page. He just stared at the cover as if it were something odd he did not want to touch. I felt my smile begin to slip.
"It's a book," I said, trying very hard to keep my voice steady. "I wrote it. About us."
There was a pause, a long one. And then he laughed, but it was not his laugh. Not the one I knew. This one was sharp, dry, unfamiliar. And I felt something inside me begin to crack. That laugh cut through the restaurant far louder than it should have. Conversations at our table died mid-sentence. Someone's fork hit a plate with an awkward little clink. I felt the shift instantly, like the entire room had tilted, and I was the only one struggling to stay upright. Daniel looked down at the book again, turning it over like he was inspecting something cheap he had picked up by mistake. Then he looked at me, and I swear there was something almost condescending in his eyes. "How much did this cost?" he asked. The question hit me like cold rain. I blinked.
"What?"
"The book," he said, lifting it slightly between two fingers as though it weighed nothing. "How much did you spend on it?" My throat tightened. I could feel heat climbing up my neck in that horrible way it does when you suddenly realize something is very wrong.
"I didn't buy it," I said slowly. "I made it."
Another pause. Then he leaned back in his chair and exhaled through his nose like I had just confirmed some private disappointment.
"Yeah," he muttered. "I can tell."
I felt something sink deep into my stomach. No one around the table said a word. It was like everyone was waiting for the joke to land, hoping maybe this was some strange bit of banter that had missed the mark. But it was not, because he kept going.
"You know," he said, this time a bit louder, almost as if he wanted everyone to hear, "I got her something from an actual jeweler, not something homemade."
He tapped the necklace box lightly with his fingertips, as if he needed to remind everyone there was a difference between his gift and mine. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, fast, hot, humiliating.
"I mean, come on," he added with a scoff. "It's our anniversary."
I had not even realized I was gripping the edge of my chair until my fingers started to hurt. Every word felt like it was stripping something from me, one layer at a time.
"I thought you'd at least try to get something decent," he continued. "Not this."
He lifted the book again and finally flipped through a few pages, but not reading, not really, just skimming, judging. Then he made a face.
"This looks a bit weird," he said. "The layout, the writing, it's all over the place."
My chest tightened so sharply it hurt to breathe.
That book, those pages. I remembered every single moment that had gone into them.
Sitting up late at night, rereading the same paragraph over and over, smiling at certain lines because they reminded me of things we had shared, crying quietly while writing about harder moments, the times I thought we might not make it. And now he was flicking through it like it was nothing, like it meant nothing.
"You really shouldn't force yourself to do things you're not good at," he said with a shrug. "It's a bit embarrassing."
Embarrassing. That word landed harder than anything else. It wrapped around my ribs and squeezed. My face burned. My eyes stung. I did not want to cry. Not there. Not in front of everyone. I glanced around the table. No one was laughing. No one was agreeing. They just sat there, frozen and uncomfortable, looking anywhere but at me. And somehow that made it worse, because it meant they knew. They knew it was cruel. And still, no one stopped him. Daniel leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on the table as if he were carrying on a perfectly ordinary conversation.
"You should have just bought something normal," he said. or at least asked what I'd want.
Something inside me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like a thread finally giving way after being pulled too tight for too long. Because in that moment, it stopped being about the book. It became about the fact that he did not even try to understand it. He did not open it properly. He did not read a single real line. He did not care. He saw the outside, judged it instantly, and decided that was enough. My hands were shaking. Slowly, carefully, I reached across the table and took the book back from him. He did not resist. He just let it go, like it did not matter, like I did not matter. I stood up. The legs of my chair scraped hard against the floor, the sound cutting through the silence. No one stopped me. No one said anything. I could not look at them. I could not look at him, because I knew if I did, I would cry, and I refused to let him have that too. So I turned around and I walked out of the restaurant, out of that moment, out of whatever version of my life I had believed in for the last 2 years. The air outside hit me immediately. Cool, sharp, real. It felt completely different from the suffocating warmth inside. I kept walking. At first, I did not even know where I was going. My vision was blurred, my chest was tight, and my thoughts were spinning so fast I could not catch hold of any of them. All I could feel was humiliation and disbelief, like my entire reality had just split open. How had I not seen this? How had I spent 2 years with someone and not known this side of him existed? Or worse, had it always been there, and I had simply ignored it? By the time I reached my flat, my legs felt weak. I fumbled with my keys, dropped them once, swore under my breath, picked them up with shaking fingers, and finally managed to get the door open. The second I stepped inside, the silence hit me. No laughter, no clinking glasses, no eyes on me, just me and the full weight of what had happened. I closed the door behind me and let my body slide down until I was sitting on the floor with my back against it. And that was when everything finally broke. The tears came all at once, messy, uncontrolled. The kind of crying that makes your throat burn and your chest ache. I clutched the book against my chest as if I were trying to protect it, or maybe protect myself. "I'm so stupid," I whispered, my voice cracking, because that was what it felt like. Like I had been naive, like I had built an entire future in my head around something that had never really existed. I sat there for a long time. I do not know how long. Minutes, maybe hours. It all blurred together. At some point, my phone started buzzing once, then again. Then again. I ignored it at first. I did not want to see his name. I did not want to hear his voice. But the notifications kept coming. Eventually, I picked the phone up. My hands were still shaking as I unlocked it. Messages from him, from our friends, all piling up. I opened his first. "Where did you go?" Then another. "You're overreacting." Then, "I was only being honest." And finally, "I'm looking out for you. I don't want you embarrassing yourself in front of people." I stared at that last message for ages. My chest felt hollow, because somehow he still did not get it. Or maybe he did, and he just did not care. I kept staring at those words as if I looked long enough, they might rearrange themselves into something softer. Something that sounded like the man I thought I knew, but they did not. "I'm looking out for you." The same person who had just torn me apart in front of a table full of our friends was now trying to paint himself as the one protecting protecting me. I let out this strange, shaky laugh that did not sound like me at all, because suddenly everything felt twisted. I scrolled back up and read the messages again, more slowly this time, trying to work out whether I had somehow misunderstood what had happened, whether maybe I had been too sensitive, whether maybe this was somehow my fault. That thought came so easily, it frightened me. It scared me how quickly I started blaming myself. Maybe the book did look bad. Maybe the binding was messy. Maybe I should not have made something so personal and vulnerable and expected him to value it. But then another thought cut right through all of that. He did not even read it. Not one proper page. Not one. My grip tightened around my phone, because this was not about the book. It was about the way he chose to treat me. I opened the messages from our friends next. The first one was from Emma. "Are you okay?" Then another. "I'm so sorry. That was awful." Then from Josh. "That was completely out of order." And more after that, all versions of the same thing. Checking on me, apologizing, trying to make sense of what they had watched happen. None of them defended him. None of them thought it was normal. And somehow that hurt too, because it confirmed what I already knew underneath all the confusion. I was not overreacting. I was not being dramatic. What he did was cruel. I put the phone face down on the floor and leaned my head back against the door. The ceiling above me blurred as my eyes filled again. I replayed everything in my head. The way he looked at the book, the tone of his voice, that word, embarrassing, echoing over and over until it felt branded into my mind. I had never felt that small before. Not with him, not with anyone. And then another realization hit me. Slow, heavy, impossible to ignore. This was not just about one awful lunch. It was about what that lunch revealed. Because people do not suddenly become contemptuous out of nowhere. That kind of dismissiveness, that kind of superiority, it does not appear by accident. It made me think back to smaller moments I had brushed off before. Little comments about other people that were harsher than they needed to be. The way he always seemed to admire things that were expensive, polished, impressive. More than things that were thoughtful or personal. The times he joked about creative stuff being a waste of time. I had laughed those moments away, told myself that was just his personality, that he did not mean anything by it. But now it all looked different. Now it felt like I had ignored signs because I wanted to believe in the version of him I had built in my own mind. My chest tightened again, because if that was true, then what did it say about our entire relationship? Eventually, I pushed myself off the floor and walked into the living room. Everything looked exactly the same. The sofa, the coffee table, the little plant in the corner he used to tease me for fussing over. Everything was normal, unchanged. And yet I felt as though I had stepped into a different life. I sat down on the sofa, still holding the book. My book. I had not really looked at it since I left the restaurant. My fingertips traced the cover, following the uneven edges I had spent so long trying to make perfect. I hesitated, then I opened it. The first page, my handwriting, neat, but not perfect. A small dedication at the top, to the person who made me believe love could be gentle. My vision blurred immediately. I turned the page, then another. Every line felt like I was reading a version of my life that no longer existed, or maybe never had, because every word in that book was real. Every feeling, every memory, every moment I thought we had shared. It had all been genuine, at least on my side. I let out a shaky breath and closed the book again. I could not keep reading. Not yet. Not while everything felt so raw. My phone buzzed again. Another message from him. I don't get why you're ignoring me. That one changed something in me, because for the first time since leaving the restaurant, I did not feel confused. I did not feel uncertain. I felt clear. I picked up my phone slowly. My hands were no longer shaking, and I typed, "You humiliated me." I stared at the message for a second before sending it. His reply came almost immediately. I was only being honest. I shut my eyes briefly. Of course. That again. I typed back. Honesty is not the same as tearing someone down in front of other people. This time there was a longer pause. Then, "You're taking it too personally." I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because it was so predictable. It was as if he genuinely could not see what he had done. Or maybe he could and simply refused to admit it. I looked down at the book beside me, then back at my phone, and something settled inside my chest. Something solid, something final, because suddenly I understood something I had not fully grasped before. Love is not just about how someone treats you when life is easy and everything feels light. It is about how they handle your vulnerability. And I had handed him mine completely unguarded, and he crushed it in public without hesitation. I typed one last message. "I need space." Then I put my phone down and did not wait for a response. I leaned back into the sofa and closed my eyes. The silence in my flat settled around me again, but this time it felt different. Not empty, not suffocating, just quiet, like something had ended. And in the stillness, I was starting to hear myself again. The quiet did not last long. Even though I had asked him for space, my mind refused to give me any. It kept circling the same question over and over, like pressing on a bruise just to prove it still hurts. Was that who he really was? Or had this just been a terrible moment? I sat there staring at nothing, replaying everything again. But this time, I was searching for something deeper than pain. I was searching for truth, because 2 years is not nothing. 2 years of phone calls, routines, private jokes, lazy Sundays, comfort, shared habits. Those things do not just vanish because of one horrible meal, do they? That was what I wanted to believe. But another thought slipped in, quieter and sharper. What if they do not vanish? What if they just do not mean what I thought they meant? My phone buzzed again. I did not want to look, but after a few seconds, I reached for it anyway. It was him. "I think you're blowing this way out of proportion." I felt something tighten in my chest again. But it was no longer the same wounded ache from earlier. It was colder than that, heavier, steadier. I did not reply. Another message came through. "You're really going to ignore everything I've done for you over one comment?" One comment. I stared at those words for a long time. It amazed me how easily he could shrink what had happened into something so small and harmless. As if I had imagined his tone. As if I had imagined the silence at the table. As if I had imagined the feeling of my body folding in on itself from embarrassment. One comment. I set the phone down again, this time with more force, because I knew that if I kept engaging with him like this, I would start doubting myself all over again, and I could not let that happen. Instead, I got up and walked into my bedroom. The air felt still in there, untouched by everything that had just happened. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. Then my eyes drifted to the dresser, to a small storage box in the corner. Memories. Photos. Tiny pieces of us gathered over time. I hesitated, then stood up and opened it. Inside was our relationship in fragments. Cinema tickets, receipts from random dinners, a train ticket from a weekend away, a Polaroid from our first trip to Brighton, both of us sunburnt and grinning like idiots. I picked it up and stared at it. That girl in the photo looked so certain, so safe, so loved. I swallowed hard because I did not recognize her anymore. Or maybe I did not recognize the reality she thought she was living in. I placed the photo back in the box and closed the lid gently, like I was afraid of breaking something already in pieces. Then my phone rang. Not a text this time, a call. His name lit up the screen. I stood there, staring at it, my pulse quickening. But not from excitement or panic, just anticipation, like I knew this mattered, like whatever came next would define something much bigger than just this fight. The phone kept ringing. I let it. And just before it stopped, I answered. Hello? My voice sounded quieter than I expected. There was a pause on the other end. Then his voice. Finally, that one word dropped into my chest like a stone. Not relief, not concern, just irritation. I've been calling you, he said. Why are you acting like this? Acting like this? I closed my eyes for a second. Like what? I asked. Like I've done something terrible, he said. I haven't. There it was again. That same refusal, that same dismissal. I tightened my grip on the phone. You humiliated me, I said, my voice steadier now. No, I didn't, he replied immediately. I gave you honest feedback. Feedback. The word made something twist in my stomach. This wasn't a work review, I said. It was a gift.
And I'm telling you it wasn't a good one, he shot back. Would you rather I lied?
I let out a slow breath, trying to keep my voice level. There's a difference between honesty and cruelty, he scoffed. You're too sensitive. Seriously, it wasn't that deep. And that was the moment something in me settled, not shattered, not exploded, just locked into place. Because suddenly I understood what I had been trying not to see since the restaurant. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not that communication. This was who he was choosing to be. Even now, even after he knew how much he had hurt me. Even after I told him, you didn't even read it, I said quietly. There was a brief pause. Then, I didn't need to. My chest hollowed out, because somehow that hurt more than everything else. All that time, all that love, all that effort folded into those pages, and he had decided it was not worth even a glance. Okay, I whispered. What does that mean? He asked, suddenly sharper. I opened my eyes and looked at my reflection in the mirror across the room. I looked exhausted, red-eyed, but there was something else there too, something stronger. It means I understand now, I said. Understand what? I took a breath. That we're not the same, I said. Not where it matters. He let out a short, irritated laugh. You're really going to throw away a 2-year relationship over this? I did not answer immediately, because I was not ending things over one lunch. I was ending them because of what that lunch had revealed. And deep down, I think he knew that. I'm not throwing anything away, I said softly. I'm choosing not to stay somewhere I'm not respected. Silence. For the first time, he had no immediate comeback, and somehow that silence said everything. It stretched out longer than I expected. For one tiny second, I thought maybe something had finally landed. Maybe he was thinking. Maybe he was realizing what he had done. Maybe he was about to say something that would make this all feel less ruined. Then he exhaled sharply. You're being dramatic, he said. And just like that, whatever small, fragile hope I had left disappeared. It did not shatter this time. It just faded quietly, completely. I looked at my reflection again, and for the first time since this all began, I did not see someone confused. I saw someone who understood enough. I don't think I am, I replied calmly. You are, he insisted. It was a joke that landed badly, all right? You're acting like I attacked your whole identity. My fingers tightened around the phone, because in a way, he had. Not in the way he understood, but in the way that mattered. You didn't just make a joke, I said. You dismissed something I spent months creating. You mocked it in front of other people. I was trying to help you, he said, his voice rising. You're not good at that sort of thing. Someone has to tell you. That sentence did not feel like a knife. It felt like confirmation. Clear, undeniable. Because this was no longer about the book. It was about the way he saw me and how little he valued the parts of me that did not fit his idea of what was good enough. I didn't ask you to judge it, I said quietly. I gave it to you because it meant something. And I'm telling you it doesn't, he replied. There it was, the final piece. The thing I think I needed to hear in order to fully let go. Because it was no longer hidden behind words like honesty or concern. It was just plain, cold, real. I closed my eyes for a second and let that truth settle. Then I opened them. I think we're done, I said. The words came out softer than I expected, but they did not shake. They did not falter. They simply landed. Solid. Final.
What? He said, almost laughing. You're joking.
I'm not. All this over a stupid book? I shook my head, even though he could not see me. No, not over the book. Then what? I drew in a slow breath. Over the way you treated me when I was vulnerable, I said. Over the fact that you still can't see what was wrong with it. Over the way you're talking to me even now. There was a pause. Then, you're seriously overthinking this. And that was it. That was the exact moment I knew there was nothing left to fix. Because you cannot repair something with someone who refuses to admit it is broken. I hope one day you understand why this mattered, I said quietly. He did not answer. Not straight away, and I did not wait. I'm hanging up now, I added. Wait! But I ended the call, just like that. Silence again, but this time, the silence felt different. Not heavy. Not crushing, just still. I stood there for a few seconds, my phone still in my hand. My heartbeat steady, not racing, not splintering, just beating, alive. Present. Then I did something I had not expected. I walked back into the living room, picked up the book, and instead of holding it like something delicate and shameful, I held it like something valuable. Because it was. Not because it looked perfect, not because it was polished, but because it was honest. Because it was mine. I sat down on the sofa and opened it again. This time, I did not cry. I read slowly, page by page, letting the memories come, not to wound me, but to remind me of something important, that I was capable of loving deeply, of making something meaningful, of showing up fully. And those things were not weaknesses. They were not embarrassing. They were not things to be dismissed. They were things worth protecting, even if protecting them meant walking away from someone I once thought I might spend my life with. At some point, my phone buzzed again. I did not check it immediately. When I finally looked, there were a few more messages from him. Short, frustrated, then nothing. There were also messages from friends asking if I was all right and telling me they were there if I needed them. This time, I replied, not with a long explanation, not with details, just, I'm okay. And for the first time since walking out of that restaurant, I meant it. I'm still trying to make sense of all of it. still trying to understand how someone I loved could turn something so sincere into something to mock. But maybe that is the point. Maybe not everything cruel comes with a warning. Sometimes the truth only shows itself when you hand someone your heart in its rawest form and watch what they do with it. If you've ever had to choose between staying loved in theory and being respected in reality, then you probably already know why I walked away. And if you want to hear what came next, stay with me.